Hello and welcome back to the Keepsake Box series, which has been kindly sponsored by Axminster Tools. In this video, we're going to be working on the lower felt lining as well as the maple lining for the internal walls. Let's get stuck into it. And I've also just decided last minute that we're also going to inset a nice little ebony handle to the inside of the lid, just to give us a little something to lift it with. But let's just take it all apart to begin with. So let's just start with this bit of ebony. I'm going to cut a little dovetail onto either side. Not that it needs it whatsoever, but it just, you know, it's a nice little detail to add to the inside that no one will appreciate but you and I, and yet I still think is worth the effort. And then to plane this angle, I actually think this is something we could do just eyeballing it on the shooting board, but it's probably worth using a block plane for this, because on these they have adjustable mouths that we can close up so that when we hit this first corner it doesn't just fall into it, because if this is all the way open like it would be on the larger bench plane, when I angle this wood it's going to fall into the mouth there and create a huge cut. You can adjust the frog on bench planes in order to do this, but it's just so much quicker and easier on a block plane. Okay, and we'll just find our centers. And I'm just going to have this come all the way through to the inside face, and we'll just very lightly knife around it. And I'll emphasize doing this lightly because at the moment the bevel of the marking knife is on the material we want to keep. So if you cut too much there, then this bevel is going to end up creating a V in the material that remains. All right, and then we'll set a marking gauge to just under the thickness of this handle. This will mean that some of the handle sticks proud of the lid and we can plane that flush rather than plane the entirety of the lid flush to this handle. And then that can get scored on the inside and the outside. Just try and keep it within those two lines, of course, because we don't want to have to try and remove this marking gauge line if it's too deep. And because we know we can trust this Shokunin dovetail saw to give us a nice clean cut, we'll use that to hog out this material. You might notice I'm still using this sort of shim spacer thing on the inside to stop this lid from flexing. It's also going to protect this veneered panel against me and a saw. Okay, then we'll just do a few in the middle to weaken that material. Okay, and then this can just gently be removed with a small chisel. We'll just work to halfway and then probably do it bevel down from the other side, because actually we might still be able to get them from there, and clear all of the waste this way. And as I get closer to the baseline, I'm going to switch to a larger chisel, but at the moment while I'm hogging out sort of big bits of waste in much a similar way as I showed you in the dovetails before, using a small chisel for this is a very good way of doing so. But if we want to keep the line here nice and straight on the baseline, that's where we're going to need to swap to one with a bit more of a wider surface area. And the nice thing about it being dovetail shape is that it closes up a lot of the gaps quite naturally. Looks like I've just got to take a bit more off one of these walls somewhere. Okay, there we go. I did think about putting some sort of curve on it or something, but I quite like that just simple square look, goes with the rest of the design. We'll just put some nice chamfers and stuff on it in the next video, but yeah, that's ready to get glued in. Okay, and then as for the felt in the bottom of this box, I'm going to go for this nice subtle cream colour. I didn't want anything too garish, and just a heads up that if you buy a project pack from us, you can also choose what colour felt you want with it, and it will come with a backing piece of cardboard as well, which I'll show you how to use. So the cardboard just helps rigidify this felt, because cutting something floppy like this, square and accurate, is just quite difficult, whereas if it's stuck to something rigid, it just makes it easier. And the way you stick it down is up to you. You could use spray adhesive, or you can just go ahead and use double-sided tape like this. And so we'll just go ahead and cover as much of this as we need to. And we'll just make sure that the cardboard on one edge is sticking proud just by 1 millimeter or so, because that's going to get covered by the internal lining, as you'll see later. But having that straight edge of the cardboard there will be very useful in squaring the rest of this. So now we'll just measure our sizes. So we need it to be 219 by 120. So we'll just measure out from a center point on here. Okay, so there's our first one, and what did I say? 120. This looks like a good opportunity to use this big square thing that Axminster sent me. Okay, and then just getting that cardboard layer flush with the bench underneath, you can now use that wooden edge to square across the felt. And there we go. Hey look, we even provide you enough for a second box. Now we'll just cut that out with the marking knife. Again, light passes to begin with, just to sort of get it going. Then we'll just gradually increase the pressure as we go. So it's not perfect around the edges, but that is intentional. There's about 1 millimeter gap all the way around, and that is just to make it easy to come back out. That gap, however, will be hidden by the internal lining, which we're going to start working on next. Okay, and then for the lining, we've got these 3 pieces of maple that are included within the project packs. And I'm just going to keep it simple in this case and just do a simple butt joint at either corner. I could go through the effort of mitering it, but I don't really have any excuse. I'm just feeling lazy. I guess I could say that the butt joints on either side will match with the butt joint look of these dovetails in either corner, whereas a miter might look a bit, I'm making up excuses. I can't be bothered. So we're just gonna butt joint it. Okay, so we'll just go through these and figure out what sides we want to have on the inside faces. Okay, one of these is obviously gonna get cut in half. And I'll just do a face side and a face edge on all of these components, because we won't even have to remove these marks later. We can just have this face stuck against the inside of the box and then this edge on the bottom. So yeah, you'll literally never see these marks. So with that, we'll just get an end square. Mark that against the box, square it across, and then cut to size. Okay, and then as for these shorter sides, I'm going to cut them to just over the size between these, because by the time I sand these faces down, they're going to reduce in thickness and it could end up creating a loose fit here. So we'll just get them like sort of snug for now. And because we don't really want to be, firstly sanding, but also finishing these inside faces when they're already stuck in and that close to the felt that's captive in there at the moment, I think it's actually best to just pre-sand and also pre-finish the inside faces of this lining before sticking it in. In fact, I'll also go ahead and pre-sand and pre-finish this top edge as well, because when this lipping is installed, it actually sits above that surface of the box, and so sanding and finishing that is going to be difficult to some extent when that lining is in the way, so we might as well do it before. But I think that's something we'll do in the next video, and so for now, all we've got to do is plane that handle flush that we installed in the lid, and that's pretty much all of the prep required for eventually sanding and finishing this thing. We're nearly there. So we've set this up for a nice fine cut. And because we set that marking gauge to be slightly thinner than the block of ebony, we've just got to flush off a few small bits there before we hit the rest of the lid. I've also got a small bit to flush off on the inside surface here. I could do it with sandpaper, and clearly this face is going to need a bit of sanding anyway. But I think I could do this with a chisel just by cutting with the grain on this ebony. I can sort of see the direction on the front here. And there you go, that's all the finishing touches complete. And so with a bit of sanding, some polishing, some sticking of this felt, and of course finishing, that is this box finished. So we'll be doing that in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget, all the resources that are relevant to this part of the build are in the description below. And I'll see you in the next one.